Hello and welcome to the Redefining High Performance podcast. My name is Ty Bennett. I'm excited to be back with you this week. And today I'm sitting down with a good friend, Heather Younger, and we're going to dive into all things high performance and connection. Heather, I love that we color coordinated. That was very well done. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you spending a few minutes with me.
Yes, I'm glad to be here, of course.
Yeah. So Heather, your work, so in our research, we found that one of the main pillars, one of the main drivers of high performance is connection, which makes sense because regardless of your role, we're human beings, and that connection gives us a sense of purpose, helps teams to move forward faster. You do a lot of work with leaders, helping them to understand all things in the world of connection. So tell us a little bit about you, and then I want to dive into some of the key ideas and takeaways that all of us can use to build better connection.
I think the long and short of it is my story is I work a lot with organizations on culture transformations.
Yeah.
So I'm working at the leadership level and all the way down to the front line.
Okay.
And so I've spent a lot of my time doing that. I have a big background in customer experience and large account management. So relationships were already really big for me, like early on, and I understood what that meant to connect with somebody and make sure that they were seen and heard by me.
Yeah.
And so at the big organizational level, at the top, where I'm talking to executive team, I have that same mindset with them. I'm trying to share with them the things they need to do to connect with their people. Often what happens is there's a disconnect between the executive leadership team and all the people doing the work to drive the performance forward, right? And so I'm just saying, I'm trying to help them. How do you reduce that gap? How do you reduce the wedge that's in between you and them, so that when you do that, they feel more empowered, they feel more connected to you, they want to drive the mission and the vision forward in the organization.
Yeah, I love it. One of the mindsets that we uncovered in our research that I think fits so well in this conversation is what we call empathic drive. And I think I'm talking to a lot of leaders and salespeople around high performance. And you take a lot of people who are type A personalities and they have this drive, right? That they have that in spades, right? They're ambitious, they're going after it. But how do you balance that with empathy? How do you not diminish connection, but actually raise levels of trust in the process of going after things? Speak to that a little bit. Like, what have you found for you and for the leaders that you work with? How do you find that balance between empathy and drive?
I am type A, so this is a thing that I remember. I don't know if you know anything about DISC, the DISC model.
Yeah. For sure.
And I've always, before I had kids, I have 4, you have 5. Before I had kids, I was this high D, so it was like dominant driver, and I still am like kind of a dominant person. However, with kids, they made me slow down and think about steadying myself. What are the needs of the other people? I did that a lot more as I had children. And so I would say the biggest thing I learned to do in order to kind of focus on empathy in the other person is to slow my butt down.
Okay.
Like I had to slow down because I was so driven by the goal, achieve. I have to meet this thing, that then all of a sudden people might feel like you're just rolling right over them.
Yeah.
And that you really do not hear them. So when I would slow myself down and kind of almost like breathe and be like, okay, who is this about? Like, ask myself the question, who is this really about? Because if it's about me, I'm not going to serve the person in the moment, which means they know I'm like there to take advantage of them. I'm there to try to get to my goal. If I pause and think about them, it centers me on how can I kind of co-create a successful outcome here?
I like reflective questions that help reframe the purpose. I was talking to my son about this the other day in regard to his sister. It was just one of those like little interactions where she said, hey, could I go too? And his natural reaction was like, oh, I don't know, because it was with his friends. And I said, what if you step back and like really ask, what kind of brother do you really want to be? Like, what do you want your sister to feel? And he's like, you're right. Like, but some of those questions that sometimes help us reset and go, okay, this is why I'm actually here. The other thing you said in there that I think is important, and I know you've done a lot of work around this, as you said, then the other person feels heard.
Mm-hmm.
So you've written books on listening, and I think all of us really struggle at that.
So do I.
Right? Sometimes that's why you write the book, right? Teach us some of the steps or important pieces around listening, because I think we can all be better in that world.
Yeah. So I think the power in the pause, I didn't recognize this until I got into the later years. Because again, when we're younger, we're really, we're driven to like succeed. And it was the idea of first slowing down enough to recognize what's not being said. Because in the sales environment, there's so many things they're not saying.
For sure.
And you have to kind of pay attention. So there's that social awareness, there's a self-awareness, like what am I doing to stop them from telling me their truth?
Yeah.
Because in sales, you have to have them tell you their truth in order you to move them to the next phase of the process. And so if I could pause enough to really see what was going on with the person in front of me, ask them other questions that were outside of the thing that was right in front of us, the thing that I wanted to get to, I could then move us back forward and go to the place we wanted to get to. But it's like I needed to pause long enough so that recognize the unsaid is important. And then the seeking part can come in. So the seeking part is literally asking those questions. And it's asking the questions and listening with your whole body. So it's not just listening with your ears or even just your eyes, but it's like literally centering yourself and taking in what it is they're saying to be like, what are they saying under the surface? Because it's the under the surface stuff that
requires
you need
a lot
to
of
get to.
presence in that, right?
It does.
And letting go of agenda, because I
Yes.
think sometimes we're in our own head. And so I can't fully listen to you if I'm thinking, what's the next thing I'm going to say? How do I move it this direction?
Totally.
Yeah.
So I
that's
think
hard.
it is so, because with sales, we have like a sales process and some of us have like the sales script and we know what we're supposed to say. And so I think you're right, letting go of the need to be like right on point at that point. Like, I can think about so many examples where people are like, you were so amazing because you made me feel like you cared for me in the moment or cared for our organization or our mission in the moment. And so when you did that, it made me want to kind of lock in to the things we had that we were going forward together with, right? So
Yeah.
it was pretty critical. After the seeking phase is kind of this decoding phase. So what will happen is that prospect or that client might say something to you, and you have to either decide. More often than not, you might have to go get approval. I mean, if you're empowered, maybe not, but there's a
Yeah.
level of approval you may have to in order to give them what they want. You got to go back. So you go talk to the team. You think about what they've said to you. You just expand outside that initial conversation to kind of research what they've said and process it. And that's important because you don't realize that maybe the thing that they're asking you for could be something that all of your prospects or all of your customers need. And so it maybe helps you solve for a bigger issue.
Mhm.
So you want to go deeper. After you've come out of decoding, and sometimes decoding has to happen on the spot. So sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's a couple days, sometimes it's happening on the spot.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it is. But it's still that need to reflect and to process what you've just heard. Instead of, again, like you just said, and just get to it, try to get to the close right away. And I know that there's organizations that require that level of very quick footedness when it comes to pushing sales forward. And I would just say that there's much more power in that decoding, pause to reflect, pause to include more people in what the next step is, because you might be able to land on more. That next thing after that is action, which is kind of like, we know that we're going to need to act on something that we heard, but sometimes it might be you have to go back. So I did large account management and sales. And what often would happen is we'd go back and do the decoding, and then I have to go back to the client or to the prospect and say, hey, here's what I found out. So I'd go back again to them, talk to them, and then seek some more. Like, is that okay? Is that good enough? And then go back again. So it'd be back and forth doing it, and then we could act. And then that closing the loop phase step is the most important. And by the way, it's like it's the thing that we all fall down on.
I think so.
It really
Yeah.
is, right? Where we've done the thing, we've done this whole cycle, we've acted on what they've said, and then we fail to tell them that we've acted. We fail to tell them exactly what our steps are. So I learned early on, people don't really care all the things about what you know. They care about how you make them feel and that you care about them. That's really the key. So in that moment, if you can go back to them when you close the loop and say, okay, when we talked about this, you said you wanted X, Y, Z in order for us to move forward with this engagement, with this deal or whatever. Here's what I've done to ensure that we can kind of get you closer to what it is you need so that your executive team, your leaders, whatever it is, gets what they need. Here's what we've done. And when you do that, you're closing the loop with them so they can see the steps that you went through on their behalf, so they can see that you're invested in the relationship and success that they want to meet their mission. So when I close the loop in that way, and I can do that multiple times too, then they realize, okay, these people are no joke. This is not just like every other firm out there.
Well, there's like a return and report kind of idea with this. And I think often when we have a leader that is giving us directive or we're working on, we do that because we know we have to. But on the flip side, when we're in that more position of power, it becomes even more impactful, I believe, when we close that loop. When we kind of return a report, we come back and say, hey, these are the things I want to ensure your success. And it shows a level of engagement and credibility that I think's super influential.
It really is. I think it's an under. I was just watching a clip on this today by somebody who does a lot of sales leadership speaking, and he was talking about the idea that the seen, heard, and valued thing is so important, and it's a really undervalued skill in sales.
Mm.
If you get that right, though, you really to completely transform what your success looks like in that.
So I'm curious, when you work with a lot of, like, do some consulting things with a lot of culture change within organizations. So you're deeply embedded. Part of culture change is developing connection within that team and getting everybody on board. When you think about the companies that have done it well, and maybe the companies that have struggled more to do it, what do you see connection does to purpose and performance?
Well, one thing I know to be true, and the ones that I've seen is are when the leaders aren't check the box type of people. So they're not just trying to kind of go through the motions and have a short-term outcome, because most of them want just immediate wins, and that's what they want. If they're in it for the long game, then when I consult them on the need to have that connection, like to show up in the trenches with the people on the front line, to do more things with them, and to also let them pitch upward so that they're again having more voice, having more buy-in. When they're those kind of organizations, not check the box, then they all do much, much better. It's the ones that are expecting the short win, not looking at the human experience, not understanding the impact of what that connection mean to the end goal they have. And it just depends. It could be public sector, private sector. There's all kinds of end goals that are there. And being real transparent about it too, that's huge.
Tell me more about that.
Well, it builds trust. I'm working with the organization now, and I was telling them, like, after I've done all this listening and we've done all these surveys and all these listening sessions, the one thing I can think of is trust. And the biggest ways that you can build trust in this particular space for this particular organization, because it's custom to each, is you have to empower people to do the work that you've hired them to do.
Yeah.
So if you want to build trust, you have to trust them. And then secondly, this whole cycle that we just talked through. So you want to not just listen and then it be done, or just go through the cycle once. You want to create this culture that embeds hearing people, seeing people, following through, and making sure that they know you've done something, that you've heard their voice. And when you do that, again, that brings that connection there, and it produces a huge amount of trust, because people are like, wow, there's transparency. When they trust me, okay, so that means I can take more risks. I can innovate. I mean, you want to be an excellent organization. You want to be a top workplace. How do you do that? Well, it starts with you trusting your people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, I think it's so important. And I think, I don't know, I've found that I will do things to get the job done, but I will do even more for someone. Right. And when there's that level of connection within a team, especially with the leadership, connected to those people. I mean, our study found, and I'm curious your thoughts, just because you work with so many organizations, things that we've always heard, the sayings like people join companies, but they leave bosses, right? Our study found that 36% of people have left an organization they like to follow a boss that they had loyalty to. But even a bigger 40% have left an organization because they had a boss they didn't like, right? It's a killer. And so that connection piece, especially for those most connected leader, becomes vital.
Yeah, absolutely. I wrote that book on the art of caring leadership, and it was my exercise. The exercise was, let me put on paper what actually would create actual hard line, like guardrails or behaviors, what caring leadership looks like. Because all the time, caring sounds very nebulous. Oh, I care. Well, do you really? What's the evidence of that? So I was trying to say, here are the evidential points. Here are the points that are proof of your caring. And so
give us a couple of those. What are some of those guardrails?
Well, one of them is obviously listening, and listening in a way that makes people feel heard. So I just kind of going, nodding your head is not going to get there, right? You have to do more than that. You have to show a deep empathy. You have to express compassion with action. Often people think that empathy and compassion are the same thing, and they are not. Compassion is taking action on behalf of another person to alleviate some kind of pain they have. And that would be the same
compassion
thing.
Is taking action on behalf of another person?
Yeah. So empathy is sensing the need of another person, sensing the need and the feeling of another person. And compassion is going a step further, which is taking action on behalf of another person to alleviate that pain. It's huge in the performance space. If you think about, like, in a sales interaction, and that prospect's in front of you and they're saying that they have there's something happening. There's just something going on, let's say personally, something going
Yeah.
on in the workplace.
Something
And
that
if you
matters
just
to them.
brush over it, number one, sometimes the compassion is just holding space for the person who's going through the issue. And when you do that, they see you're different. So you differentiate yourself just by holding space for them. And now they're prepared to do more for you, which
Yeah.
is what you said. Another thing would be appreciation and recognition. I shock people all the time by how much I'm like, oh my gosh, just so you know, you are fantastic. Or don't minimize how amazing you are. And when people are like, wait, what? Like people don't do that. Well,
Yeah.
you have to do that kind of thing where you want to shock people. You want to be different as a leader.
Yeah.
And that differentiation of doing that. The empowerment's another one. I mean, again, trust your, if you don't trust your people, it means maybe you don't trust your recruitment skills or your hiring skills
Yeah.
or
There's
your
a
interview
disconnect
skills.
somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. So figure out what that is and try to lean into it. And there are ways to take baby steps to do it. You don't have to be like, give everything away and let them do everything without any kind of guardrails, but set expectations that are clear, that are reasonable, and let them know the risks they are able to take that are ones that they don't have to come to you on. And just kind of do baby steps first to see, and then you build trust of them and they build trust in you. And now they're
And
able
trust
to go
in
do
themselves,
more.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
growth in that process. I love your work. And for those who are listening, if you're not familiar with Heather's work, I mean, go and get her books, The Art of Caring Leadership. You've written how many books now?
4.
Four?
Five next year. I'm coming
Hey,
out with one too.
yes, we're going.
We both are having one next year.
Fifth book in 2026. I love it. When you think about connection and from a leader standpoint, kind of final thoughts of what are one or two ideas that we haven't talked about that you think are important for people to remember and understand?
Mm-hmm. I think keep parsing out time that's specifically for a person. So what'll happen, I'm just going to be thinking about in the leadership space. We may have 10 or 20 direct reports.
Okay.
Our schedules are crazed. And how do we have that time for them? It's not the quantity of the time, it's the quality of the time.
Yeah.
And so even if you can parse out 15 minutes every week, or you can stop by for a few minutes to their office unannounced. My favorite leader ever he would always do that. He would stop in for just a few minutes unannounced. And I was like, wow, you came down from the high floor to come to me, and it always felt just so good. And so we definitely had a strong connection. I would do anything for that gentleman today.
Yeah.
So that's that. I would say that was probably that would be the biggest thing. Parse time, hold space, slow down, give people time and attention. And when you do that, you'll not believe the results you get.
Well, as those who are listening, obviously you find this because you want to be a high performer. And we talk about all this research and things we've done. But I think today is a great reminder of people matter most. And the highest performers, like virtually nothing you do is going to be high performance on your own, right? Especially in the business space. And so people making space for those people, building connection, slowing down, taking that time, I think it matters tremendously. Great thoughts on listening and all those. Heather, if people want to find you, where do they find you? What's the best place to connect?
You can find me at heatheryounger.com or go straight to LinkedIn and just look up Heather Younger. You can
Awesome.
find me.
Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. Excited to share all these insights with our audience and love the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much.